All right, let's jump right into a question that's super important for a lot of people's jobs, their health, and, their safety. Can you actually drive a forklift if you have diabetes? This is a huge deal for so many workers out there, so let's get into it.
So yeah, this is the big one. Can you operate a forklift if you have diabetes? And if you, or maybe someone you work with, has diabetes and you're around heavy machinery all day, you know this isn't just some abstract question. This is a real-world, everyday concern for both employees and the companies they work for.
And the reason this is such a big deal is because the stakes are just incredibly high. You're mixing a really demanding, high-risk job with a medical condition that needs, constant attention. So you can probably guess that the answer isn't a simple yes or no.
And that brings us right to the heart of it. Can you do it? The answer is maybe. See, it's not the diabetes itself that's the issue. It's how well you're managing it. So the most important word we're going to talk about today is control. That's what it all comes down to.
Okay, so if we're starting with maybe, how do we get to a confident yes? Or in some cases, a necessary no? Well, we do that by really digging into the specific things, the risk factors, that decide whether someone can safely hop on that forklift. Now, this is pretty interesting. We've got to look at type 1 and type 2 differently. With type 1, it's often well controlled with insulin, so if there aren't any complications, the path to driving safely is usually pretty clear. But with type 2, things can be a little harder to control, which means that need for excellent management and a totally clean bill of health is even more critical. All right, and these are the absolute 100% non-negotiables. We're not just talking about risks here, these are total red flags. And it's pretty clear why, right? Every single one of these conditions directly attacks the skills you need to do the job. Your energy, your vision, your physical control. I mean, hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, can make you dizzy. And neuropathy? It can literally make it hard to feel the pedals. You just can't risk that.
Okay, so we've covered the risks, but let's kind of flip the script and talk about solutions. How does a driver with diabetes get to that definite yes? Well, it's all about being proactive and putting a really solid safety plan into practice.
This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? The diagnosis itself doesn't automatically disqualify you. It's really a call to be responsible. So as long as your diabetes is under control and you're free of those serious issues we just saw, then yeah, that door to operating a forklift is definitely still open. So if control is the key, what does that actually look like day to day on the job? Let's get into the most hands-on part of this whole thing, your safety plan. Think of this as the toolkit that every operator with diabetes needs to have for every single shift, no exceptions. You can almost think of this as your pre-flight checklist. And these aren't just good ideas. They are 5 non-negotiable habits. You check your levels before you start, you take breaks to check them again, and most importantly, you listen to your body. If you feel off, you stop. Period. And notice those last 2 steps are all about communication, because safety is always a team effort. And of course, keeping a close eye on your levels is the foundation of it all. Modern tech like a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, can be a complete game changer, giving you real-time info right there on the job. But it's also about the big picture, getting regular A1C tests for long-term tracking, and this is huge, always following the testing plan your doctor lays out for you. I want to just pause on this number for a second. 3. For operators with type 2 diabetes, the advice is to test your blood sugar at least 3 times a day. And that's not just a random number. It's because type 2 can be a little more unpredictable, so you need those data points to make sure you're staying ahead of any problems. Being prepared is everything. This is your emergency plan. Look, having some candy or glucose tablets on you isn't just a smart move, it's essential safety gear, just like a hard hat. And the protocol is so simple. If you feel unwell, you stop and you tell somebody. In a real emergency, the priorities are clear. Secure the machine and call for help right away.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a minute. We've talked a lot about the operator, but what about the dynamic between the employee and the employer? Because this isn't just about health. It's also about rights, responsibilities, and, the law.
You can see here it's a real balancing act. As the employee, you're protected. You can't be fired just for having diabetes, as long as it's under control. But on the other side of that, the employer has a huge legal and ethical duty to keep the workplace safe. And that means they can ask for a medical exam, and they absolutely have to address anything that could be a direct threat to you or anyone else.
And just so we're clear, those rights are backed by some pretty powerful federal laws. Things like the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, were put in place specifically to prevent discrimination. They make sure that workers are judged on their ability to do the job safely, not on a medical diagnosis. So what's the big takeaway here? It's this. Yeah, the law protects you, but hiding your condition is a danger to yourself and everyone around you. Being open and honest with your supervisor is what lets them be a partner in your safety plan. It takes it from being a private risk and turns it into a shared responsibility for everyone. Which brings us to our last thought for today. We've talked about glucose monitors, safety rules, even federal laws. But when you boil it all down, maybe it comes back to this one question. Is clear, honest communication the single most important safety tool we have? Just something to think about. Thanks for joining us.